Concerning Detroit rentals, what do squatters and house sitters have to do with it? Well, I am going to tell you because in Detroit, if you have a rental property and it goes vacant, your tenant moves out, there are neighbors that are watching that tenant move out, especially on a beautiful wintry day like this where it's nice and cold. And they're like, that house has a furnace. Well, that night, there's a neighbor, typically in Detroit, this happens, that will break into the house, no matter how good a neighborhood it is. I'm telling you, they will break into the house and they will steal the furnace and the hot water heater. So what do you do about it? Well, there's a bunch of different things that you can do about it. In this video, I have 2 stories for you, and I'm going to tell you what you can do to try to prevent this problem of your furnace and hot water heater getting stolen. 3 ways to keep houses safe in Detroit. One of them is you can board them up like this, but good criminals carry the right tools to take those right off. A better way, it's more expensive, you can do what's called DAWGS doors. There's a monthly price. I'm thinking like $125 a month maybe on a house like this. I don't really know. I don't work for them, but it's nice because criminals cannot break in because they don't have the right tools. And even if they did come with a saw or something, any way that they have to pull these things off is really loud, and the neighbors would hear and would call the police, who hopefully would come, and they cover the doors too. What we like to do is use these DAWGS doors, and when we're right at the end and we're ready to show the house and somebody's ready to move in, we move in a house sitter. We have a few good ones that we use and it works for us. So we don't normally get robbed here in Detroit when we're renovating a house. I'm Monique Burns. My husband and I buy houses in Detroit. We renovate them and we place a tenant in them, and then we sell the properties to investors from all over the country and all over the world. We used to have a property management company, and we did that between 2015 and 2020. We scaled up and we were able to sell it. Wait, watch my dog play a minute while I give you information that will make this video better for you. First, use your mouse and hover over the line at the bottom of the screen, and you can see chapters so you can go right to the spot you care about. Also, check the info section below the video. You'll find links to other videos I've made about house sitters and squatters. You will also see a link to my blog. My blog is like a Detroit user's manual. And if you have questions, email me or comment below and I might answer your question in my next video. Last, it's super helpful if you subscribe, like, comment, and share. It's inspiring and it keeps me wanting to make you more videos. Let's get back to the woods and my 2 stories. So this first story is about a house on Hickory, and it's owned by a guy, I'll call him Adam, and Adam owns 3 houses. And in 2019, we renovated a house and we placed a tenant in it. We sold the house to Adam. Everything went fine until 2020 when the pandemic came around, and this tenant figured out that she could just stop paying rent. Who's to do anything about it? Well, 2 property management companies later, because he didn't have us anymore because we sold the company, and then he had one company that didn't do very well, then he had another property management company after that, and the second property manager was much better at getting this tenant evicted, and they went ahead and they got the tenant evicted. But that night that the tenant moved out, now I don't know if they had a bailiff there or not, but let's just say if they did have a bailiff there, one of the things that should have happened is they should have removed the furnace and hot water heater so that nobody could come in and steal those things. But that's not what happened. Those things did actually end up getting stolen. Well, we were working on a house next door, and we saw that we didn't know that happened. I mean, you can't really see that from the outside. But we did know that the house was vacant because Adam had asked me, he said he didn't have the heart to evict anyone, and he felt awful. Even though they went a whole year without paying him, he felt awful that he was part of an eviction. So he said, just sell all my houses. If you go to my website, there is a link there on what I have for sale. 2 of Adam's houses are still available on Hickory and Elmdale. Those 2 are still available for sale at the time of making this video, and he's got great paying tenants, so the houses are selling at a really good price. Adam asked us to sell the house for him because he couldn't stand it, but he went through an eviction. So we were in the process of putting together a buyer, and we noticed one day, because we were working on the house next door, coincidentally, that the doors were removed from this house. Not only that, but whoever broke in and removed the security door and the steel doors also took all the kitchen cabinets, and they took the bathroom vanity. And so we decided, let's just protect Adam and this new buyer. We ourselves went ahead and boarded up the house. And we worked with the new buyer who gave funds to have my husband do the turnover. So it was part of the real estate sale. A lot of people get confused. My husband's not a contractor for hire. We flip houses that we buy and that we sell. But it worked out that this was something that he could do. So we immediately took over the house. We boarded the doors and we came back to figure out what we were going to do with the rest of the house. I say we. I mean my husband and his crew. I don't lift a hammer. I'm not like that. But they went in, and Jeff, who you see in my videos a lot, was in the basement as my husband was walking upstairs, and he opened the door to go upstairs. And as soon as he opened the door, two things were very alarming to him. One, he could smell cigarette smoke, and two, he felt heat. So it was obvious that a squatter had moved in to the house. What's a squatter? There's somebody that sees an opportunity of a house that has electricity, and in this case there was no furnace, so this person could bring a space heater, and that's what he felt was a space heater. Well, it was quite a scary situation because coming up from downstairs is rather vulnerable feeling. And he was walking up the stairs and he was yelling, "I'm the homeowner here. Announce yourself. Who are you? Tell me who you are." And the whole time he's going up, he knows that there's someone up there, and this person would not announce themselves. And my husband very cautiously went up, and he turned around the corner, and who should he find squatting in our house but a young female. And she was standing around the corner just sobbing, and she was like fight, flight, or freeze. She was frozen. She was frozen in fear and just sobbing, and so my husband was like, oh my gosh. And she's a girl from Ohio who had broken up with her boyfriend and didn't have anywhere to live, but has a job. She says she had a job at the Dollar Tree. And I think my crew talked about going to see if it was really true that she really worked there or not. But there were bags there from Dollar Tree. She hardly had any possessions, and she was just sleeping on the floor in our house. My husband is a very good person, and I think he's got a soft spot, especially if a female cries to him. And so my husband sees this girl, and what do you think he did? He said, how about you stay here as a house sitter? And so she did, but he did it with extreme caution because who knows, So Jeff drove by a couple times and came to the house at night to see if really she does have this boyfriend and what really goes on at our house at night. Nope, no boyfriend. Everything she said checked out. When she said her shift is when she would leave. She dressed for work. It looked like she went to work. When the crew was working there, she just kind of minded her own business and stayed upstairs. And of all the different house sitters that we've had protecting our houses, I personally noticed that when I came back to the house, she wasn't there. I was dying to meet her. I have yet to meet her. But I would have asked her a million questions. But anyway, I always need to use the bathroom when we give tours to people from Detroit. We're driving around, we're showing them houses. It's been a few hours. So I went into the bathroom at that house, and I'm like, I have never seen a bathroom this clean with one of our house sitters in it. And I'm thinking maybe we should be using more female house sitters. I don't know. But I asked my husband back then when all this happened, I said, can I make a video about this? This is a great story. You're such a good guy. He was like, no, you cannot make a video. We don't know what her real story is, Monique. And then what happens when we need her to move out? What is she going to do? What if she stays and we get a renter there and she's like, I'm not moving, and gets all aggressive or something? People can get bossy, even when they're the ones that are in need. Well, yesterday was move-in day of the new tenant, and one of our crews packed her up and moved her to another house where we know that there's a furnace, and we don't want that house robbed before we sell it. And so I thought that was a great story. Well, now I've got my story number 2. So we have another house that it's time to move our crew to our next house. And Jeff goes to the house, and he was to meet Pat there, and he gets there and he texts Pat, and he's like, Pat, we got problems. I just saw a guy walking out of our house. Well, Pat arrived, and Pat approached, and I just have to say, my husband is very, very good with all kinds of people. Rich, poor, you know, it doesn't matter what race, what religion, whatever. My husband has an amazing skill with calming people down, with being, I think he should be like a negotiator for the FBI or the CIA. I think if anyone could get a hostage situation taken care of, it would be Pat. Not that there were hostages, don't start jumping to conclusions here. But anyway, so Pat sees this situation, and he approaches them and says, what's going on? The guy is like, yeah, you know, I'm squatting in your house. And Pat said, okay, well, that's over because we're here, we're working on the house. And the guy's like, yeah, you know, I'll get out when I get out. And Pat said, no, we're here. You're going to have to get out today. And so the guy's like, okay. And Jeff and Pat follow him into the house, and they walk in, and this is what they walk in on. They didn't know what they were going to walk in on. This is scary. So they walk in, and it's very warm in there. When we bought the house, there was already a stove there, and so they had the stove open, and we had the gas on because we're working on the house, you know. No furnace there because it's a vacant house, so it always gets stolen. So we go in, and the gas stove is going, and it's heating the house, and they have curtains over the doorways so that they just have the kitchen and the living room, and there's a great big, I think my husband said like 60-inch flat screen propped up against the mantle, and there's a table and some chairs and 3 men. And so my husband was a little bit worried. There's my doggy, Annie. He was a little bit worried, and he told them, you know what? I don't want any trouble. And he said, they know that trouble means that he would have to call the police, and if he calls the police, this is definitely a breaking and entering situation where the police actually do help you with a squatter. I made another video all about squatters, so check that one out here. It's another squatter story that was rather unusual, but I go into the whole squatter situation in Detroit and what there is to do about it. But he said to them, you know, I don't want trouble, so you got to go. And they did. And I said, well, how do you know they're not coming back? He said, well, so far, Jeff is only doing things that, like, there's nothing to steal, what he's doing at the house. And I thought about our female house sitter, and I thought, I don't want her there. You know, I don't want this young lady to get hurt, because what if they came back while she was there? But she's already at another house. So I'm not really sure what we're doing about securing this house. I mean, we do have other house sitters that are male. I don't like them as well because they're gross, you know? But anyway, that's the story of our week. A very exciting week. That's the stuff that goes on in Detroit. My moral of the story is just buy a house from us so you're not dealing with all this. And you just have to be prepared when your tenant moves out to have a plan in place. Know what it is you're going to do. You could board the house. You could put on what's called DAWGS doors. You could get a house sitter. You could have the furnace removed. But the problem with removing the furnace is it's just not ideal, because if you're turning the house over for the next tenant, likely it needs to get painted. And yes, they can put these little, I don't know what they're called. They put like these little fire things in the room and heat a house that way and put it like by the heat vents, because there's no furnace there, so it blows up into the vents and heats up the house. That's an option, and they can get a lot done that way, but it's just really not ideal once they have to paint, because the walls get too cold and then the paint doesn't stick, and I don't know. The boarding and the DAWGS doors is problematic because it makes the house really dark on the inside, so it's hard to get anything right. But if you do like the boarding or the DAWGS doors, you can pretty much leave the furnace in because it's really hard to break through the DAWGS doors. The boarding, the people can go right through. But I hope all this was helpful. And house sitters aren't like the perfect solution either, because you just don't really know what you're getting into, you know? So these are some of the challenges in Detroit. Just if you're going to invest here, high risk, high reward. Just know what you're getting into and be prepared and put it in your budget. If you have any questions, give me a call. Thanks.